Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, host of the program, and the owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, most people choose agents that they know, like a friend, and they don't really have a system for selecting the very best agent to handle one of the largest assets that they'll ever have in their life. So, what are some ways that a home seller can determine how to choose a real estate agent to sell that valuable property, their home?
Yeah, Richard, it's interesting that the National Association of Realtors, they do surveys. So they send out surveys to buyers and sellers and ask them, what made you pick your agent or not pick your agent? And it was really interesting the decision that was made. Sometimes it's like, well, we like them. They sold us the homes. There's no um, data based on their success or the whether or not they could get the job done, nothing about their sales volume, nothing about their training, nothing about their marketing. They just do it based on an emotional decision because they're a friend, right? So when we're in this kind of market where it's sort of in between sellers and a buyer's market, in my view, seller's market, the seller has an advantage, buyer's market, the buyer has an advantage. We're kind of in the middle. I mean, most of the offers we're getting, the buyers are coming in asking for a discount, asking for the seller to pay loan closing costs. I see that in almost every price range. Or they're saying, well, I have a house to sell and it's not on the market yet, but I'm not going to put it on the market unless you reserve your house for me, which does nothing for the seller. There's no certainty in that deal. So most agents don't have solutions or ideas, and we do. Right now, we're seeing more supply than we have in a number of years on the market, but springtime, there's not as much. So it'll probably accelerate in the summer, but right now, probably through May, the number of available homes is going to be a little bit less. Now, why would a home seller pick an experienced market? A lot of people judge agents' experience based on the number of years they have in the business. And if you look at the actual stats, and it's sad for me to say this, that more than 80% of the agents sell 3 or less homes a year. Half of them don't sell any. There's a huge turnover in real estate every 5 years. 87 to 90% of real estate agents leave the business. Many of them have another job. And there's just, it's a low threshold to become a real estate agent, but there's not a whole lot of training on how to help somebody handle one of their largest assets. And so you wouldn't believe how many complaints I hear about it. According to Zillow, 71% of agents sold zero, nada, no homes. That's most of them in 2024. And so the other thing that's happening is the market went kind of flat here, if not corrected back a few percentage points. And most agents really don't know how to handle that. They go from it's red hot, so they'll send these really dumb lowball offers and say it's a buyer's market, which it's not really. It's kind of in the middle, in my view. And it really just depends on the house and how they position the home. One of my agents in my office, she's been probably at 6 or 7 different brokerages in her career. And she was talking to somebody that's from her last brokerage that was complaining, asking her how she was doing, which Jen's doing very well. But, she was saying, yeah, last year before I was selling, 1 home a month, which is a top producer. To me, that's not enough, but that's what's considered a top producer. And she went from 12 homes a year to 3. Okay. Why does that matter? Why do home sellers care about how many homes you sell? I think there's a lot to be said about experience and whether or not they've seen that before. Let me just give you an offhanded example of inspections. So what I see on inspections every single time we get one is many of the inspectors will say, oh, carbon monoxide detectors and smoke detectors are more than 10 years old. Those got to be replaced. Water heaters more than 8 years old. That's got to be replaced. There was older building code to have the bathroom vent fans vent into the attic versus all the way out the roof, which might leave a little moisture in there sometimes. That was building code at the time. So they asked for that to be done. So the seller does not have to fix any grandfathered, they call them grandfathered items, but an inexperienced agent may not know that. I got into a big cat fight with an agent just a few weeks ago, and I was working with the buyer. We went in the house. I keep telling the story because it's just funny. And they have a swamp cooler. So swamp cooler introduces moisture somehow. It's got water that introduces moisture into the home and cools it down. But those things have filters on them. And if they're not properly maintained, they will have an odor. And so we went into this house and we're like, that's so weird. It smells like dirty diapers, but it was an empty home that had been staged. We went back to the house a second time because I liked the location. And it still smelled like dirty diapers. So instead of the agent taking my constructive feedback and trying to find out what it was, she threw it back on me and said, we went in there, we didn't smell it. It must be you or your buyer. You guys stink. And I'm just like, no. And in fact, if you look it up on the internet, what it says is that if the filters are not changed in a swamp cooler, it smells like dirty diapers. So I gave her that feedback. It just, I don't know. I don't know why they would get defensive about it. If I was the home seller, I'd be mortified if people were saying that about my house, right? I'd want to get all over it and find out what was going on. So what we're seeing right now is, we have kind of a light supply of homes in the springtime. Average days on market has gone up higher. It's continuing to go higher every single month, right? And the problem is the industry norm and standards wants to make the agents all the same. So what are home sellers looking for in an agent? They're looking for responsiveness, trustworthy, good reputation, strong sales history, maybe, if they ask the question. Part of a team. In other words, they have a backup, or are they a one-horse, shop? And then some of them care about, their experience in the past. But, you can find an agent to stick a home in the multiple listing service for a few $100s if that's what you wanted to do. But if it's not properly priced, if it's not properly marketed, it becomes a commodity in the sea of houses that are on the market. And that doesn't help anybody. And a lot of people, when they interview agents, basically they go with the first one they met, or they have no predetermined method of how to select an agent. So because many of them haven't been in the business very long, or there's a huge turnover, or they're not selling very much, it becomes a problem, once they go on the market. Here's an example. Right now, I looked at the statistics this morning, and it was showing me that 1 out of 5 homes on the market every month are selling. That's not very good. That's 20%. Why is that happening? It's happening because whoever they're getting their pricing advice from, either Zillow, which Zillow bases it on the homes that have not sold. That's what AI said, is Zillow's algorithm is solely based on homes that haven't sold, that's why they lost $500 million trying to get into the real estate market and buy and sell them. But the other criteria would be, oh, look at this home that sold back here 2 years ago, and therefore my home should sell for that amount. So a lot of people don't really study the market. A lot of agents don't study the market. And even if the seller is unrealistic in their price, they're going to take it anyway. Oh, sure, I can get you $1 million. And then they put it on the market. There's very few showings. There's very little activity. They get frustrated, obviously, because they're not getting the truth. And these agents are just trying to make other agents the bad guy, to have the feedback say it's overpriced, it's overpriced, it's overpriced. the market is going to tell you right away if you got it wrong based on the volume of showings, based on the volume of phone calls. It's going to happen right away. And it's a process. Not everybody does it very often. And a whole lot of agents don't do it with volume. So, our process is very systemized, and I'm happy to share it with you. Or you could go on my website, Barb Has the Buyers. We also have a really cool free report that you can order called the Free Agent Selection Guide. Go on Barb Has the Buyers and click on free reports. You'll get the 9 different selection factors and the common mistakes when somebody selects an agent. So if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call, 719-301-3900, or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. You can always reach Barb at 719-301-3900. And we're talking about the why do I need a well-qualified real estate agent when selling my home, because it's one of the most valuable things you'll have in life. Barb, what are some other reasons people selling their homes need to choose a great agent?
Well, it's sad for me to say that the average agent really does not spend a lot of money on marketing. So they don't have a lot of sales, so they don't have the money to spend on marketing. I can't even convince agents, even though I put it in my feedback, especially on occupied homes. I don't expect them to leave a business card on a vacant home. That's fine. They don't have to do that. Yes, I have an electronic record of it. However, if it's an occupied home and the seller knows you were in the home and you didn't leave a card, how do they know you were there? And some of the agents are like, well, we'll use the digital lock boxes. I'm like, okay, that's fine. The digital lock boxes will tell the seller that came and went and how long they were there. However, it doesn't leave the business card. And there are a lot of agents that come down or up from other areas that don't have access to the electronic boxes. And it's a real estate emergency for them to have to download an app, get their 1-day code at the appropriate time when they're running around with buyers trying to get in the system. So it's not a great system in my view. I don't care for it personally. Some people like it, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, it does cost money to get photos done. They're not free. They're very expensive. The other thing that has to happen is, how do they look, right? Have they been modified, like virtual staging as an example? That's one example that can really make a home look fabulous, because there's a certain segment of the population that if you look at an empty room, you can't figure out what to do with it. I'm one of those. I don't have an artistic mind in my head. I just don't. I like what I see, but if I look at an empty room, I would have no idea how to do it. And buyers buy on emotion. So you have to really make that impression to attract the buyer. I was looking at a home this morning that had been on the market 147 days. And the very first picture, the outside front picture, was terrible, but it was also clearly done with an iPhone because it's very skinny and vertical. The agent didn't spend the money to really get the marketing right. And the home was also overpriced. So it's just sitting there month after month, not moving. That's a mistake. And we know how to solve all these problems. So if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call at 719-301-3900. You wouldn't believe how important it is to make that first impression when they're looking at homes on the internet. If you are thinking of moving, give us a call at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You know what? You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. If you're thinking of making a move, call Barb at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. Or if you want a free fast report, 27 tips to sell your home fast and for the most money, go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Go up to the free report section. You'll find it there. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the market. And has it transitioned in terms of the selling process? Barb will have the demystification of that, plus her hot new listing.